actually it's bad, but it's the good part where people are going to be forced to wake up. The masses are going to have to take a look at this. There's many of us. There's probably one person per family that is awake, that understands the background of what's going on. But when you have this out where everyone now has to ask a question, what is this? This is the illusion finally being broken. I think that's where we're stepping. And yeah, it will get a little worse before it gets better, because it's going to be chaotic.
When you see lakes turn pink, rivers and things like that, usually it's caused by like a bacterial overgrowth. And, there's a couple of particular bacterias that do that. And almost always there's a toxicity where you want to avoid that. So if that's up in the air in high concentrations, it definitely would. Yeah, it's not good.
Good afternoon, everyone. Guess who was with me? Evolutionary Energy Arts family. Uncle Dave here, along with. We're going to talk about earth changes, energetic changes, why you might be feeling strange. Everybody feels something's a little bit off, and who better to trying to explain it to us in simple terms, something that we can digest and understand, and how to maybe take action to get ready for this, how to protect ourselves energetically because of this, or how to absorb this to enhance ourselves. A million different things in the news right now. It's scary. It's wonderful. It's enlightening. It's going to wipe out humanity, extinction level event, everything in between. You're being overwhelmed with confusion because, well, that's the plan. So Here we go. Wanted to start with the earthquakes here. See if I can bring this a little bit larger on the screen. I'm just going to say game on. So what do you think about the size and the number of these larger earthquakes just in the last week here?
Things are definitely ramping up. You could feel it. And, it's just the timing. Everything is kind of perfectly placed to say that this is the time that everything should probably kick off. As far as the big earth changes kicking off, I mean, are we going to have peace, or is World War III going to break out? Is there going to be some sort of next plague that comes out? Because there's always headlines out of China about, people being sick, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's all those different references to 2025 as a key year. Obviously, now we're 5 years away from 2030, and DAP 2030. We're heading right into the belly of the beast with this timing, and yet what we get is everything on a natural order is really progressing in a positive direction, even though it might not seem it. Nature is ultimately going to reverse the horrible paradigm we've been living in as far as energy sources, food scarcity, just the focus on everything negative in the world. It's always that way. I mean, if you put up a video and you said, "Hey guys, look at this is wonderful," nobody's going to click on it, because we've been programmed for the death and destruction and the negativity, and that just seems to be ramping up.
2 cats rescued in a tree. See it here live.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, you did it. I was checking out your channel, Evolutionary Energy Arts. You can go over on YouTube and check it out. I was looking at the video, deleted earthquakes, or earthquake warning erased was one of your latest ones here. Talking about Nevada and the Bay Area, that earthquakes suddenly disappear. I mean, why is that? What's going on with the reason to make things disappear versus allowing people to see that there is sort of this uptick in just earthquakes in general around the world? Or just, it doesn't matter if it's large or small, the number and the locations is really going off the charts here.
So that made me think that there might be a military connection with that 5.9 that was erased from Nevada, because it is also right by Hawthorne and, the big Nellis Air Force Base now.
Fallon area.
For whatever reason, they renamed that Creech Air Force Base now. But yeah, it's around the Nevada test site. I mean, was it a new test? That got picked up. Shouldn't be, but you never know.
As we wrap up 2025, it's a good time to slow down and reflect on the year. If there's one thing we all learned, it's that uncertainty isn't temporary. It's the world we live in now. Waiting for things to go back to normal isn't a plan. It's a gamble. For over a decade, my friends at Noble Gold Investments have helped Americans protect themselves and the people they love by diversifying their wealth in gold and silver. No one knows what 2026 will bring, but one thing's for sure. In an uncertain world, real wealth isn't digital, it's physical, it's lasting, it's yours. So when you're sitting around the table this holiday season, surrounded by family, remember the best gift you can give isn't under the tree, it's peace of mind. So before the year ends, take one smart step toward a safer future. Visit 2030gold.com and get your free wealth protection kit today. That's 2030gold.com. And this holiday season, if you open a qualified account with noblegoldinvestments.com, they're going to send you 10 of these 1-ounce silver rounds. Holiday season's greetings. And on the back, we have the Happy Snowman, which melts at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Silver, 1,763 degrees. It's metals. Your stockings are waiting for these. Head to 2030gold.com. Click on that link in the description box below. Yeah, let me throw something at you. Ransom Godwin, my co-host on my Thursday night program, he lives right out there in Alamogordo, right next to another Air Force area in New Mexico there. And he was saying that recently, every time there's been a CME, they just run like incredible amounts of sorties up there with all these aircraft flying and checking out the way they can operate in higher electric fields in the atmosphere with really highly charged atmosphere. So he said whenever there's a CME, the amount of air traffic, like he understood regular training, pre-war, like he'll call me and go, hey, you know what? The jets are up everywhere. I think we're going to get ready to go somewhere because the amount of daytime, nighttime flights is just off the hook. That's one level. But he's like, there's a whole nother level that's occurring when CMEs come in of some larger, it's like beyond even what they were getting ready, running 24/7 on the sorties to get ready to maybe move over to Edon. It was one of the times he noticed an enormous amount of traffic. Just recently, maybe something's going to happen in Venezuela, but he's like, man, it is ticking off again. Huge here with an enormous amount of, 24-hour a day sorties. But he was telling me there's one category that blows everything out of the water. When we have CMEs, everything is in the air at the same time. Everything. So what are they testing for? What are they trying to, since you brought up the military with that, what are they trying to observe during these heightened electrical frequency times?
I think it's multi-layered. Yeah, there's a lot going on. You do have competition going on between the different countries, even if there is ultimately one shadow government in place. It does feel like it's factionalized and split up into competing elements. At the same time, though, they're getting us ready for that fake alien invasion, Project Bluebeam type thing. But you have to look back through time. Look at 1565, Nuremberg. What happened in Nuremberg? There was a battle in the sky with a ship that looks like, it looks like Darth Vader's starship being seen by tons of people, hundreds or thousands of people, seeing not just that ship, but like our modern day drones and orbs were up in the sky. They were blasting each other out of the sky. And people witnessed it. That was 1565. So, was that our secret military? Are they 500 years ahead of where, we think they are? Are they really much, much farther ahead than what we're told? It's fascinating too, because before, or at least by the historical perspective, the airships like the Zeppelins, the Hindenburg type of airships, before those things supposedly got popular, there was a lot of sightings of them. But then we have people that are deep diving into Tartaria and looking into that and noticing the whitewashed old photos where the sky is always blurred out for some reason in the photos that we have of them, and questioning the whole narrative where we literally used to seeing ships in the sky. Well, if you go back to the Hindu Vedas, they were, and that was like 5,000 years ago, according to the historical perspective. They saw beings all the time in the sky. They recognized these beings had technology. They were grouped into good guys, bad guys, asuras and devas, and they were in this eternal battle of which was going on often over our heads.
were they interacting with them in terms of one-on, or they step back? Because when you said was a tech 500 years old, I was thinking Sumeria. No, the tech's probably 7,000 years old,
Right.
in advance of where we sit, and we've just been led this linear type of progression. But with the rises and falls and collapses of civilization along the way, of the greatest that we've ever known on this planet, that still leave us remnants with megaliths, like what caused those collapses? The only thing, if it wasn't technology, the technology was not advanced enough to control the entire planetary weather system. Hence these depleted magnetic fields, the jet streams moving. It was all about the food. So at that point, even with the technology that's thousands of years advanced, they still could not control the working systems of our rainfall patterns on the planet. You know, maybe this stratospheric engineering occurred with this year, 535 AD. They called it the worst year to be alive because the skies, they give us the story that it was 3 VEI 8 eruption volcanoes within a 10-year period, a decade without a summer. But perhaps their geoengineering program at that time had gone awry, and they just went, and then there was a VEI 8 or so, but they had already been dispersing at such a heavy level to try to prevent something. A lot of this is magnetic interference. Yeah, they might try to sell it as cosmic radiation management, or reflectivity, or solar reflectivity, but perhaps it's trying to absorb some sort of frequency coming in, or deflect a frequency that would be the upgrade for humanity. I just think they've tried this before. It's not the first time what we're seeing here. Maybe it's my wild imagination, but
no. And what if there's actually competing agendas in the factions that have been in control? So it's fascinating. We could go back to the Book of Job, and what do you have?
There were still UFOs back then as well.
Yeah.
Josephus even, I think, was mentioned with UFOs.
Flavius Josephus, yeah, absolutely. And when we look to the Book of Job, you have the devil, Satan, and he's in an argument with quote unquote God. And it's about how much they could torture humans before humans curse God. And obviously they're both doing things like sending plagues and war and pestilence, famine, literally killing all his family members, just to prove a point. With God saying he's not going to curse me, he's going to still love me, and Satan saying, no, you trigger him enough, he's going to curse you. So that's the oldest book in the Bible. And if you just simply replace those with factions that are, at least on the surface, literally talking, but secretly competing. And I could easily see Satan, with the little pitchfork and all the reptilian, accoutrements that come with how he's dressed and how we picture him. Satan equals reptilians. And when you look to God, that's the Elohim, which is the Anunnaki. So, that's really what I think that they are alluding to. There's a little tenuous peace, a little tenuous halt in direct hostilities between these Anunnaki beings and the reptilian beings, both of which say, this is our creation as far as Homo sapiens sapiens, and the case of the Anunnaki and the reptilians saying we were here first, and both of them basically arguing and still kind of fighting over Earth and us, control of us.
Yeah, because I just done a video with Bruce McDonald the other day, and the whole reason that I had all these slides up already was he was talking about Josephus with the UFOs and these things. And then I was like, well, they're in tapestries, easily in the 1400s. So let me run through a couple images if I can. Oh, I only opened one instead of the full file folder. But this is what we get routinely through history, is things like this that just don't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can you explain this to me for, a 1,500-year-old painting that clearly shows an orb with some sort of radiative energy coming down, illuminating an event that's happening on the ground? I mean, how do you really explain these things? Oh, maybe it is next. Let me see if I can. No, these are some images. Yeah. And then we got this UFO behind Mary over there. That's clearly some sort of extraterrestrial craft. Some old maps. I was trying to put in some older maps from, describing what Taiwan was in the Black Sea here. Unusual. And you were talking about Tartaria. Right here it is. If you can see right up on this one, this French map here. It had some ancient maps already up for the things we were talking about. And what do I see? Des Tartares right there on the map for you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's everywhere you look, these types of things. So, I mean, it's not.
I'm just excited that more and more people are starting to understand this. They're getting past their religious programming, understanding it is programming, it's sales, like they sell us everything. Like, the pharmaceutical companies with, you're watching a fight, you're watching a football game, and all of a sudden they're going to tell you how to, get rid of your acne, but, could cause death.
But you lose all your fingernails.
Yeah. Lose everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the big reveal. And I think if we get through this month and the war doesn't start this month and all hell doesn't break loose,
Really?
then I think we're in a different, we're going on a different timeline, which can be very, very exciting. But it really could be a timeline where the war between the gods manifests over our heads again.
You really think this month? Cindy, what are you feeling like energetically? Is it really this the month, like the rollover month here? Because everybody feels something different, but is that potentiality there for everybody to feel different? Like they start to think, and then we do jump timelines here, and then are on to something different. And those of us have jumped are going to experience, but the other ones who didn't are still back down there.
It's going to get wild, but I think it's going to get a little bit worse before it gets better. We are seeing so many people going through an awakening, people reaching out for help that have never dealt with energy, but they certainly feel the energy. It's really, really strong. And people going through life crises, people going through huge change, people going through rather large decisions that's extremely disrupting for their life. So they think, but I think all of this is going back into alignment, even though there's a lot of technology out there and they're using that technology, and maybe they are using the ether to test some of this technology. I believe that the gods are playing with their toys, and they are going to show them off in the air at some point here very soon. It's inevitable. So we have some interesting planetary conjunctions coming up. One is where Neptune and Saturn will be traveling together, and those are two very powerful planets. But what do you have? Neptune is all about the fog and illusion, and Saturn is all about structure. So it's trying to bring these two things together. I think it's going to get a little bit messier before it gets better energetically for people, but it's going to be good because Mother Nature brings things into balance always.
She just brought up that word fog, and we started talking this morning about fog, and then it gets me thinking about the movie. We've had the movie The Fog. John Carpenter did that one with ghosts coming through in this fog, and then you had The Mist, which was all about the military opening up a portal and letting all sorts of demonic creatures into our reality. If you haven't seen The Mist, that one was pretty tough, but it just is. It gets you thinking about CERN. It gets you thinking about what you were talking about this morning: California, Florida, South Carolina. There's been mists reported in these various places that seem kind of odd.
We got.
Are you able to pull that up on your computer monitor so we can share those? Are you able to pull that Twitter up there? Or were you getting those off of your phone when I sent the links?
We were getting them off the phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's, there was a lot of tweeting about this. One person in Aiken, South Carolina, was talking about the fog. They took a picture. It doesn't really show very, very well. They were calling it a chemical dust fog, is what it felt like to them. This one in California, they're talking about it being radioactive, a radioactive fog, 400-mile radiation fog sweeping in, affecting 13 million people in 27 counties in California, travel warnings and respiratory alerts. Mm-hmm. And in South Florida, heavy fog And, again, too, what we have is a lot of reports of various aircraft, military, especially in the air. We visited family over next to Creech Air Force Base, Nellis area. And, there is a lot of military craft that goes up there because the base is right there. But there was tons of activity this time. And a couple of times, especially, we saw like squadrons go over. At one time, I think there had to be at least 8. I think there were more like F-35s. They looked very advanced. Go over in a formation, heading over towards Death Valley. It's tenuous out there. There's so much. Yeah, you try to keep up with everything, it'll make your head spin.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, I'm going to pull up the pink fog here for us, if you don't mind. I'm going to see if I can.
And David, while we're talking about that, go back to the plague of Justinian, the Justinian plagues. What did they see? They saw strange signs in the sky. They saw, what we would call UFOs, UAPs. They saw sundogs. There was a lot of that sundog phenomenon. And also there was this thick fog. And then all of a sudden, you had people dropping like flies with the Black Plague, is what we're told.
Yeah, it was. So here's the fog that is referenced. This is off Mr. BB333 channel. He does a lot of weather stuff. I follow him a little bit. He usually does 1 story or 2 stories per video of like deep dive, but he'll throw a bunch of, send a video in. He'll show a cool little lightning strike or something like that, obscene weather. But if you're seeing this pink, that does not make sense for me other than it's chemical nucleated, because to see pink fog, I get it for a minute. There's some, sun refractive events, but that sun is super high in the sky to have a pink fog. If it was coming just at sunset or just at sunrise, just barely glinting over the horizon, some sunsets turn red for a few minutes, that's just the angle of the light coming in. And it's usually at a horizon event. But this thing is, that looks like it's got to be, depending on the direction of it, 10 a.m. in the morning or somewhere, 3 p.m. or something in the afternoon if you're off the West Coast watching it set. But it looks like it's a morning for me, just like looks like a morning event. Just intuitively, I see that feels like it's still kind of misty from the morning. It didn't burn off and it's still kind of doing its thing. But I mean, can you really explain that to me? I don't think you can.
I think this is actually it's bad, but it's the good part where people are going to be forced to wake up. The masses are going to have to take a look at this. There's many of us, there's probably one person per family that is awake, that understands the background of what's going on. But when you have this out where everyone now has to ask a question, what is this? This is the illusion finally being broken. I think that's where we're stepping. And it will get a little worse before it gets better, because it's going to be chaotic.
When you see lakes turn pink, rivers and things like that, usually it's caused by like a bacterial overgrowth. And, there's a couple of particular bacterias that do that. And almost always there's a toxicity where you want to avoid that. So if that's up in the air in high concentrations, it definitely would. Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, because somebody else, remember that was a thing happening in Florida as well, maybe a year and a half ago. They kept getting those chemical fogs, and it was, you could see it coming down. It was like micro snowflakes, but people talked about their faces getting burned chemically, and then suddenly, once it got enough news awareness, it stopped. But until that point where people were waking up and started complaining about it, asking, taking water samples, scraping the sides of their homes, or, I saw somebody doing a greenhouse. So like, this is not normal. Once a lot of this, was brought to the forefront, then it stopped. So maybe that's what it takes every single time. Once we start to see this strangeness, that we do be aware and we do start to point it out and we do start to call it out, because almost every time in history that we see these things, from COVID to these fogs, when enough people get aware and say, it's got to stop, this is strange, it can't be normal, it seems to stop. It's just like, it seems they're running test after test on humanity to see enough people at what point they wake up, from the time of inception to the event, to the pushback, to the stoppage. And whether it be a natural weather event, or but whether it be a man-made, some pandemic event or whatever it is, it always follows the same model. Slavery was the same thing. started, people pushed back, and enough of people said no, then it stopped. I mean, you can go back through history, witch trials. Okay, well, it was okay to burn people, for blame them for creating glaciers. It was the sickest thing in Europe. Slovenia had the highest witch trials and burnings because they had the most crop losses from the most events in the spore minimum. So you start to look at these things, there's always that causation. You reach that ramp up period, and then they're like, whoa, you got to stop this, cool it down. And then it stops every time in history. So at what point does it do this time for what's happening on our world is more the question.
Yeah, we did a little short yesterday just talking about the IQ dropping. If you really look at it, IQs globally have dropped off a cliff. And it's not really anything we should be um, surprised about when again you realize what inflammation does to the body, toxic water, and even exposure again to frequencies, EMF. Now we could rely on AI for everything, although AI can make mistakes. It certainly does. But all this, all the tools, all the technology, it doesn't have us thinking and using our brains. So if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. And you need to lower the IQ for people to accept things blindly. It took a lot of people, unfortunately, with lower IQs to actually do all the witch burning and not realize that maybe they were getting rid of some of the best herbalists in their area. People that understood nature and what herbs could cure what things, and people that were also in contact with maybe elemental beings, people that had, again, abilities that we might describe as paranormal, but they're normal. And then how about they actually were promoting full frontal lobotomies in the 20s and 30s. I mean, you could see the advertisements. Mary was a depressed little girl, but she had a full frontal lobotomy and now she's happy. It's like it worked. It worked. I mean, this is what they've done.
Tremendous. Can I throw an idea? I'm just going to read this out, and then I'll let you throw wherever it is. So I was watching a video earlier today. This guy named Chase Hughes. He says money is not just math. Not when you're just managing your finances or your checkbook or your accounts or your assets. You're managing your safety and your self-worth. That's what's on the line during a collapse. They're panicked and will panic not because they're money, it's because they're losing their identity that's tied to that currency. And then it goes on that fiat currency is a socially agreed hallucination that works until the belief stops. Like energetically, how close are we to that? You're getting those two sets where the belief system is also coming to a grinding halt, and that the collapse was always ongoing until the public awareness snaps it off. It wasn't that day it began. It was already, flowing until the public had noticed it. And then that's when everyone, the collapse started. Well, it had been ongoing for a while. But then this all ties back in directly to their identities. Their beliefs are all tied into this fake or fiat currency. So how does this, energetically, what could we expect from that? And, are you feeling this energetic flow into the belief stops on it right now?
We're something is going to have to be done. So the belief system is probably the strongest form of control that I call them controllers. It's what they have. That's how they control us, is through the belief system, through religions, through the financial system, through the school system, through the judicial system. Really, if you were to take all of these systems down, it would drop the bars and people would realize that they're free. So when it comes to finances and your identity, there's got to be an energy exchange. There's got to be something done first. If you're going to go plow someone's crops, then something else needs to be done on the other end. That will always be. But the currency they have it's fake. It's a fake type of energy that we're utilizing for ourselves. And all of that is going to fall away. And it's going to be difficult. Like I said, people are going through crises because they're not in alignment with their higher selves. And if that means that it's dealing with your money, then that could very well be taken away too. But it's not going to be taken away where there's nothing put in its place. So your identity might just shift to what it truly should be. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's what I pick up.
And how close do you feel that we are to that? Yeah, I understand the
Yeah.
movement over across from, that makes the most sense, which is terrifying for these, conductors of the planet at the time, because if you're finding your true identity, that they lose all their power at that point. Because if you understand we're in an eternal cycle and your spirit lives through eternity, and this one time on earth does not send you to another realm for the rest of your existence, either heaven or hell. Now, once you come past that, there's a lot of loss of control. But once you find your true purpose, there's really nothing they can do that will stop you from that goal and that drive of finding that purpose. Like, there's nothing really, even look through history, even threats of death don't stop that. So, those two things running in tandem as parallel lines got to be terrifying for the elite. So, what's the next thing? Are they going to try to rope everybody into not finding their true purpose as the collapse comes? And that's their whole phase, is you got to be scared during this time. You can't pivot. How close are we to that?
It's up to us. How close is humanity? Are we fed up with dealing with the controllers? Are we fed up with what they have given us? It's up to us. I would love to see a lot of things change in about 6 months, and they very well could, because of the frequency that is coming onto the planet, bringing us back into alignment. So, the energy that comes up, 6 months for people to really start to recognize, but it has to be you have to be the one that wants to change it.
It feels like this is a process. I think, again, adapt 2030. 2030 is kind of like a goal line. It does feel like it's really, really important for them. I think the period that we're in now, I just feel what started in 2025 was another phase that probably will flow through like 2028-ish. There's another big event coming, because there's tons of people that are getting very similar information, both channeled and then also like ex-military, officials, government officials, all talking that, we're in maybe a 2-year window before you actually see a Pleiadian, on your TV screen being
next to be right here. Hey.
Yeah, they're going to do that. They're going to, verify and show us beings.
Maybe that's the reason they kept going to this gender fluid thing. And there's like 37 genders. Perhaps they're trying to soft program you for some sort of ET contact where they truly aren't like us in terms of genders. Like, because if it just blew out of the woodwork and boom, you got something here that it itself could shift in between 6 genders that we've never seen before. And that is what it can do on its own. Like some of our reptilian species on the planet can flop between, male and female. But imagine if you had some sort of amorphous being that came down that could jump between 6 sexes that we never even knew existed. And then that just is presented to you day one. That's a freak out for most people, compared to, oh yeah, there's 37 genders and they've already got your mind ready for something weird and strange and unknown, or the way it, but it does kind of fit. I'm just saying.